now today's class, we are going to introduce our class in the topic, crusades. We need to finish this topic, crusades, okay? Now, in the topic crusade, there are two very important characters in these topics. One of them is the Richard the First. Yes, Richard Corazón de León is Lionheart. Richard Corazón de León se le conocía. And the other one is Saladin the Great, que era un guerrero, el rey turco. And they fought during, I think it was the third or the second crusade. And it was a very Richard the First. He was the king in England, and he went to this crusade to Palestine in order to recover the Holy Land, and they did, but only for 50 years. After those 50 years, the Turkish, they tried to recover that area. Okay, so I'm gonna play. Oh, here is Carrillo. I'm gonna play a video about Richard the First, and then we'll begin and we'll talk very briefly, because I think I'm gonna load up the PowerPoint presentation in your platform. Okay, so let's go over this very short biography about Richard Lionheart. Okay.
Richard I of England was born September 8th, 1157, at Oxford, the son of Eleanor, Duchess of Aquitaine, and Henry II of England. He was close to his mother, who fostered his love of the troubadour musical culture cultivated by her own grandfather. Richard himself was a skilled composer of ballads, and some of his songs survive to the present day. He also developed a love of liturgical music and took time to listen to the clerks singing in his royal palace. Richard was a teenager when his father put the military of Aquitaine under his command, with orders to subdue the rebellious barons. In this early episode, it became clear that Richard had a gift for generalship. John Gillingham believes that Richard may even have exceeded his father's expectations. From 1175 to 1179, Richard's power as Duke of Aquitaine grew enormously, as he brutally suppressed the rebellious Poitevin barons. Tensions between Henry II and his sons broke into open warfare on several occasions. Richard joined his elder brother, Henry the Young King, and younger brother Geoffrey in rebelling against their father in 1173. In the late 1180s, Richard allied with Philip II of France against Henry II. On his father's death in 1189, Richard gained the English throne and all of the continental Angevin territory. As soon as he was crowned, Richard committed himself to a crusade to aid the Kingdom of Jerusalem, most of which had been conquered in 1187 by Saladin, the great Saracen ruler of Egypt. Richard's crusading began with the strategically crucial capture of the island of Cyprus in 1191. Cyprus proved ideal for supplying the Crusader holdings in Syria. On his arrival at the siege of Acre that June, Richard found essentially the whole of the Kingdom of Jerusalem now under Saladin's authority. Within a month of Richard's arrival, Acre, that most important Palestinian port, was reconquered. Richard would go on to defeat Saladin on the battlefield in two major engagements. At the Battle of Arsuf in 1191, Richard's tightly organized army withstood relentless attacks by Saladin's more numerous forces. And at the crucial moment, Richard led several cavalry charges that smashed Saladin's lines. The following year, in 1192, Saladin's army overwhelmed a Christian garrison holding Jaffa. Richard responded by storming Jaffa's beach with his knights, hurling back Saladin's forces. Within Jaffa itself, Richard fought side by side with his men, clearing the city of Saladin's troops. A counterattack by Saladin was then soundly defeated by Richard, and Jaffa was restored to Christian control. Richard never made an attack on Jerusalem, believing the city could not be retaken, given Saladin's hold on the hinterland. But Richard's victories over Saladin restored Christian control of the Palestinian coast. Only a few years prior, Saladin had been on the verge of annihilating the Crusader presence in Palestine. Now, Richard's triumphs forced Saladin to recognize the Christian conquests in the Treaty of Ramla. Although Jerusalem itself was not restored, Richard's capture of Cyprus and the Palestinian coast restored the Crusader kingdom in a new incarnation that would endure for 100 years. During his return journey in December of 1192, Richard was captured by Duke Leopold V of Austria and only allowed to return to his kingdom after a ransom was raised of 100,000 marks. By imprisoning a fellow crusader, Leopold had broken his crusader's vow and was excommunicated by the church. In 1194, Leopold's foot was crushed when his horse fell on it during a tournament, and 5 days later he died in agony of gangrene. Richard was anxious to return to his lands, for King Philip II of France, who had sworn to respect Richard's territory during his absence on crusade, had also broken his vow, attacking and picking away at Richard's holdings in Normandy. Richard waged a series of campaigns over the next several years to win back what Philip had taken, defeating the French king in battle, and once even very nearly capturing him. Richard died unexpectedly in April of 1199 in the arms of his mother Eleanor, after being struck by an arrow while besieging the castle of Chaillot. He left his kingdom to his brother John, signaling a troubled time in Angevin history after Richard's competent reign. Historian John Gillingham says that Richard's reputation as king was high among his contemporaries. Gillingham also describes Richard as a fine administrator who knew the political, diplomatic, and military value of open-handedness. Historian J.F. Verbergen says that Richard was concerned for the personal welfare of his men. He took care to provide for them properly, allowed no unreasonably long marches, imposed strict discipline to protect the whole column of march, supervised the execution of orders personally, and at the same time was ready for any unseen eventuality. The Muslim chronicler Ibn al-Athir says that Richard's courage, shrewdness, energy, and patience made him the most outstanding man of his times.
Okay, now let's move on to the presentation for today's class, the Crusades. Okay, over here I made a mistake. I said the Crusade began from 1096 until 1104, okay? It said 2000, as in the future. Okay, let's begin. Now, the main idea of this is there was a conflict, right, between the Christian and the Muslims because they wanted to take over the Holy Land that was in Palestine, Jerusalem. Okay, now the Crusades were fought over control of Palestine, a region southwest east. Europeans call Palestine the Holy Land. They call it the Holy Land. Now, the cause of the Crusades, there are several causes, but these are the ones that are in the book. It says the many years Palestine had been in the hands of Muslims. In general, the Muslims did not bother. Christians who visited the region, they go over there and visit and see all the Holy Land. And by the year, at the end of the thousands, though, a group of Turkish Muslims entered the area and captured the city of Jerusalem. It says something, you know, this belongs to us. So they took over that place and they repelled all the pilgrims. So the pilgrims went back to Europe and they spoke with the Pope and tell him that the Turkish took over the Holy Land. So that was the Pope, he was impressed. He said, no, that's not possible. So because of that, start all the crusades. Now, he changed Europe kings and nobles to quit fighting. In those years, they were fighting over the lands, and the Pope say, we need to get together in order to fight for our religion, which is the Catholic, and we need to recover this Holy Land. He says they quit fighting and they have to fight together in order to go against the Turkish, okay? In response, people joined the Pope's army by the thousands, and they used this mark. It's like a cross, a red cross that they use it in their uniform. He said, what it means, the crusade, what is the meaning of the word crusade? Comes from the Latin word mark with a cross, marcado por una cruz. That is the meaning of the word crusade, cruzado. Yeah. Now, the first crusade, it was about 5,000 crusaders. But the thing is, that first crusade, not all of them were soldiers. There were a lot of peasants. It means there were farmers who didn't know anything about the army. Like I said, the Turkish troop killed most of the untrained, poor, equipped peasants before they even reached the Holy Land. Remember, the Pope in those years, the Catholic religion was very important. And the Pope says, okay, if you come with us in order to recover, to come to these crusades in order to recover the Holy Lands, I'm gonna give you a free pass to go to heaven, something like that. Okay, so everybody wanted to go to heaven. So they decided to go and invade and try to recover this Holy Land. Now, when they reached Jerusalem in 1099, they found the Muslim army disorganized and unready to fight. They didn't expect that. So after about a month, the fighting, the crusade took over the Holy Land. That was the first crusade. They took over the Holy Land. Now, after the Europeans took over the Holy Lands, they separate the kingdom in 4 small areas, like in the they create something like feudalism that happened in Europe. So they try to do something like feudalism over there in that area. Okay. Let's see. Next is later crusades failed. Now after the first one, the other ones that tried to, because the Muslims, after 50 years, they tried to recover and they took over some areas. Okay. The second and the third is a French and German kings set off in 1147. This second crusade was terrible failure. It was a failure, the second crusade. The crusade returned to Europe in less than a year, not even a year. Now the third crusade began after the Muslims retook Jerusalem in 1189. The German kings died and the French king left. Now only the King Richard I, who was in charge of that area in England, stayed in the Holy Land. He was the only one who remained there, and everybody left that area. Now that's why these two characters are very important in these crusades. Hello, are you there? Somebody say something? Okay, so these two characters are very important, Richard I and Saladin the Great. Now the third crusade, Richard's main opponent in the third crusade was Saladin the Great. He belongs to the Turkish people. Now the leader of the Muslim forces, known as Saladin the Great, he was a brilliant leader. Even Crusaders respect his kindness toward falling enemies. And in turn, the Muslims admired Richard's bravery. Now the first crusade, that was in 1201, the French knights arrived in Venice, ready, that is near Italy, ready to sail. Now they need to take a boat and sail to that area, to Palestine, Holy Land, to begin the fourth crusade. However, the knights didn't have money. So what happened? The Venice people, they said, okay, if you go and fight for us and recover this area that belongs to them, the Venice people, the Sahara, they will give them some money. Okay, now the end of the crusade that happened in 1291, the Muslim army had taken back all the Holy Land and the crusade had ended. Why did the crusade fail? Now these are some facts why the crusade ended. One of the Christian leaders fought among themselves and planned it poorly. And another one, the crusade weren't prepared to fight in Palestine desert. So that means that the weather was a very important fact. That's why they failed. Now crusades in Europe now is 1013. Okay, we are going to stop right here because you need to get ready and prepare for the next class, guys. Okay. Now, please, everyone, please turn on the computer, the camera, please. I need to take a picture of all of you guys, please.